Remember growing up making the perfect mixtape was an art? It would take hours or even days to get the mood just right. It's an art that's nearly been lost in today's drag and drop digital playlist world.
We're four friends of 35 years with many, many mixtapes between us. Join us each episode as we pick a theme, discuss the songs, and build an infinite mixtape. Welcome to the Mixtape Diaries.
Hey, we're back with you now with the I should write a script.
This is a great start to season 3, Brad. Let's keep rolling. We'll edit this out later, right? Yeah, wink, wink.
Coming back at you, the four of us, Mixtape Diaries season 3 now. We've rebooted this season after considerable time off. I'm Brad here. Well, we never introduce ourselves.
Well, okay. Well, I think we do in a theme a little bit, but cool. I'm Mark.
I'm Bob.
How about this? This sucks.
That's Brad. That's Mark. So listeners, what you don't know is that we can see each other, and so that guy over there is Brad, and that guy's Mark, and down there in the corner over there is Carla.
Because we're the three best friends that anybody could have.
It looks like the Brady Bunch,
but there's four of us
on our screens.
I'm on the top left. I don't know where you guys are.
I'm top left as well.
I'm on the top.
That can't be.
Yeah.
Wow.
No, that
weird.
can't be.
Yeah. We're in the metaverse.
It's my avatar.
Alternate timelines.
Hey, I missed you guys.
How's it? I was gonna say, how's everybody been?
Summer break's been good.
Carla was in Europe for a little while. Brad was in Europe for a little while.
Yeah, how was that?
Those were the good old days. Yeah.
Travel getting.
Mark's in Canada right now.
Yeah, we've been quite international.
That's right.
I'm in Macedonia.
Are you Alexander the Great?
Yeah, kind listeners, that's Macedonia, Ohio. I haven't left. I've been right here waiting for the other three to record another episode.
Well, at least you're drinking a big ass glass of whiskey on ice, so
it looks like it, doesn't it?
Yeah,
I wish it was. Well, so it's good to see everybody.
Yeah, it really is.
So what do you guys want to talk about today?
So I think it's time at this point to do our regular announcements, which is that Mixtape Diaries available on where all fine podcasts are offered for free. At MT Diaries on Twitter is where you can catch up with us and communicate with us, and probably not get a response, but we'll try to do better, as we always promise.
Is Twitter still a thing?
Twitter's still a thing. I only use it to see if the Guardians are going to trade for any players. And of course, everything that we do on this podcast feeds into a playlist that we have on Spotify. Look to search for Mixtape Diaries, and also on Apple Music. So you can find us there. I won't say everything we do, because sometimes we stump Spotify. Sometimes they don't have what we have to offer. And then we have to come up with something like kind of second best.
It is kind of crazy. Like, I feel like in the last couple of weeks, we've all brought up songs that you can't find. Either they're not streaming in North America, or I don't know. It's weird.
Yeah, I think there's been a lot of rights issues lately, or people just pulling stuff, like pulling their streaming from Spotify. Because I've noticed that too. It's been
it's kind of weird.
Some jackass podcaster makes everybody leave.
Somebody owes us an explanation of why those things disappear, and I'm waiting for that explanation. Elon Musk. I feel like it's Elon Musk's fault.
Probably is.
Because he probably wants to buy Spotify, and he's such a turd. Anyway.
How do you really feel, Bob?
We're off the rails already.
Getting back on the rails on the playlist side, though, regardless, I've been listening to the playlist a lot with the travels, and man, it's good.
It is a pretty solid list of songs, I will say.
Do you ever put it on shuffle and it plays like 10 songs in a row by the same person, and you're like, oh, it just likes Bob better than the rest of us?
Well, it is because I choose all the superior songs.
Here we go. Season 3 is off to a start. Newell, why don't you talk to us about what the theme is before this just really becomes like an Autobahn crash?
Well, so this
Reference.
You like that?
yeah,
Yeah.
nice.
Is that an opportunity for a cross promotion? Listen to Carl and Brad talk about Krautrock. Our latest episode is about Audubon by Kraftwerk. Mark's got on the brain because he's been listening to that album nonstop since
I
he
feel
played
like
our last episode.
Mark and I don't get any sort of royalty checks or residuals or whatever it might be from this advertisement that just happened for free on our podcast. I can't believe that this nonsense happens.
Yes, but that goes both ways because we talk about the Mixtape Diaries in every episode.
Yeah, but you're part of the Mixtape Diaries.
Right.
And how you guys are going to kick us out soon.
Oh my gosh, we would never kick you out.
No.
Mark and I have just started our own podcast called the We Don't Like Brad and Carla podcast.
Mark and Bob talk about Brad and Carla.
Yeah, that's what it's a podcast. There's Romy and Michelle's high school reunion, and then Mark and Bob talk about.
We were doing some of that at the beginning while Brad had to restart his computer like 4,000 times to get working again. We're all a little rusty, folks, so give us a minute.
Yeah.
So Mark asked about the theme, and our theme for this episode comes to us from Carla, and Carla had a great idea. I think everybody's going to like this episode. So this episode is samples. She wanted songs that had samples in them, and I think we came up with 12 pretty good songs.
Yeah, it's
really.
a great list.
Usually, I think when we come up with songs, we all have songs that from each other we're kind of like, okay, maybe I liked 2 of your 3, but I think this is a pretty solid 12 this time around. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I agree. I thought this was a great group of 12 songs. And some of them I didn't realize had samples in them.
It is kind of one of those weird things that I think we're at an age where sampling probably was really becoming a big thing as we were getting into popular music more and more. And so I think it's just a thing that we grew up with. I think if we were 10 years older, then it would probably be a different thing, that we might have a little different feel of how samples work in music. And now, of course, I mean, just about I feel like almost any song that you hear probably has some sort of little pieces that they've kind of plucked from here and there, if it isn't just a straight sample from another song.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like the music's all sampled pretty much.
Well, and I wonder too if that's just the prevalence. I mean, everything now is created digitally, so it's so easy to sample songs that, I mean, you don't really need anything fancier than even your phone to grab a sample and plug it into your software, and then boom, it's right there in your tracks that you're trying to create. So I wonder if that's just a big piece of it too, that it's so incredibly easy. And that's probably why we see so many crazy lawsuits too now, where people don't even realize that they've lifted a piece of a song and put it into their song. And you see artists all the time that are like, oh, I didn't even know I did that.
Well, and I think a lot of times, we kind of talked about this before we started recording, is they may just recreate the sound, and it's not that they actually sampled it from the original recording. So then it's like, well, what's the rule there? If
Right.
you've kind of recreated it, but you've sped it up or slowed it down, like, does that constitute a sample? I think that's kind of where a lot of the lawsuits
Yeah, and
end up.
I think we'll see that in some of the songs that we've got today, that some are just straight samples, some are the band's re-recording a song. So I think we've got some rule benders for today too.
I think
So
you've got some rule benders. I mean, if you want to, I think you need to own that.
I always have to bend the rules a little bit, don't
Yeah,
I?
but technically I do too.
But
It was my theme.
Carla has a couple, and yeah. Well, so
What's going on here?
oh boy, Brad's got to restart again.
No, I was just saying everyone's breaking the rules.
Oh,
I didn't write the
I thought there
rules.
was something wrong with your computer again.
Fair to like be concerned here, because I mean, it was kind of a shit show watching you get set up today.
Yeah, this shit show is brought to you by Apple Computer and Beats headphones and HP printers.
Because you need an HP printer to do a podcast.
Well, you do to print your notes when your parents are in the guest room and you don't have your Anyway, I could go on.
There's a thing called a pencil and paper. It's amazing.
Listener, Mark is holding up literal sheets of paper that he has handwritten his notes on.
From a spiral notebook.
Yeah, right. There's all this spiral confetti hanging.
So old school.
He is old school.
Well, I'll cut off all those spirals and like chew them up, and it'll be a spitball later. So
The crazy part is you guys have notes. You suckers.
Bomb's like, what are notes?
All right, Mark. Do you want to get us kicked off here with your 3 fine selections?
yeah, I figure this can't get any worse than to send me in here first, right? To shake off the rest even more. So I do have to say before hopping in, I was impressed by the selections just because when you think of samples in music, you can easily go to the hip hop genre and get a quick 3, 4, 5, 6. I mean, it's like every song's pretty much sampled. I really applaud us for going a little bit deeper, and even to our rule benders / breakers. Who am I to judge, right? I've certainly bent the rules 1 or 2 times throughout our podcast here. So
yeah, especially the one impressive thing is that you only came up with 3 songs this week,
and there were no last minute changes.
Yeah, I mean, you came up. Usually, you send us like 13 or 14 songs that you're gonna have, and then we set a time to record, and like 4 minutes before you're like, no, I'm switching to this song. But you stuck to these. I'm proud of you, Mark.
I like to think I'm maturing in the podcast recording. Just getting more seasoned.
Yeah. This time off, you've like refreshed and nice. I like it.
Well, can I kick it? Yes, I can. Can I kick it?
I see what
yes,
you did
I can.
There.
Can I kick it? Yes, I can. Can I kick it? So, first song is a wonderful song, and I'm so excited that I could work this into our podcast because it's just one of my favorites. And if you didn't figure it out from my god-awful singing, my first selection is called Can I Kick It by a Tribe Called Quest. I think most of us in the free world and maybe the not so free world know the hip hop group, a Tribe Called Quest. Say that
that's
fast.
Easy for you to say.
Yeah. This song was released in 1990. It was their 3rd single from their debut album, People's Instinctive Travels and the Pass of Rhythm.
Can I kick it? Yes, you can. 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 Well, I'm gone.
I just love this song, and if you're wondering around what was sampled in here, the most obvious one obviously is the sample from Walk on the Wild Side by Lou Reed. Such a good one. That was great. Thanks for the baseline. Yeah, it was great. Nice sound effects. So, and I have to say I picked this song because of that song. I mean, I love Walk on the Wild Side by Lou Reed as well. So I thought this was just brilliantly placed in here. However, it's not the only sample in this song. And amazingly enough, this song contains samples from What a Waste by Ian Dury and the Blockheads. It also contains Spinning Wheel by Dr. Lonnie Smith, Dance of the Night by Sergei Prokofiev. It's a very Russian name that I can't.
That's
really
also easy
say.
For you to say.
Yeah. And Sun Shower by Dr. Buzzard's original Savannah band. I didn't know any of these things before kind of coming into the podcast. Obviously, Walk on the Wild Side's the obvi, but it will be fun for y'all to go kind of start listening to those originals and kind of picking them out in the song. Walk on the Wild Side certainly isn't. This isn't the only song that has been sampled. Somebody that shares my very same name, Marky Mark and the Funky Bunch, also sampled this song. So you probably thought I was going to come hot in with that, but I thought I'd spare us and go the much better Tribe Called Quest way. And I think I'll just wrap by saying this. I mean, this song is just absolutely incredible. It also appears on their 99 compilation album, The Anthology. And I love it on that version because they also incorporate Bonita Applebaum in the outro. The outro, excuse me, of Bonita Applebaum, they include at the beginning of the anthology version, which was released in 99. So curious what you guys think. In, out, crazy, not?
I love this song, but I love a Tribe
Yeah,
Called
it's
Quest.
good stuff.
It's so good.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those. I feel like "A Walk on the Wild Side" is probably one of those songs that's been sampled quite a bit, just because that bass line is so perfect. So, yeah, it's a great song. It's a fun song. I was playing it yesterday, and Zach was dancing around in the living room. So,
I need more Tribe Called Quest in my life. I mean, I have Midnight Marauders. I play it from time to time, but I feel like I could be digging deeper. I mean, it's just everything I've heard is great.
If you put their whole catalog like on shuffle, it's a good listen.
It's so good. Yeah, it's so good in a shuffle. I mean, it's good front to back, but you're so right. And Carla's the one that introduced me to this band way back when. So I believe the first song you ever played for me was Bonita Applebaum. And it's just, I mean, they're just so good. And I think eventually we'll have a hip hop themed episode to really broaden our horizons. But I think this was.
I'm ready.
I am so ready as well. And funny enough, an interesting thing about this song is because of that Walk on the Wild Side sample, they did not receive any money from the single because Lou Reed took all the profits from it.
Because was this a case where they didn't ask for permission?
I mean, probably.
I mean, right. I mean, it just wasn't a thing then.
I guess Lou Reed needed the money.
because he wasn't kicking it.
Yeah.
That's why.
I don't know I cannot remember the name of it, but the documentary on them, on A Tribe Called Quest, is phenomenal.
It's so good. I know. I was trying to remember what it was as well.
Rhyme and Rhythm, maybe?
Yeah, I think that's right, actually.
Google it, listener. You'll find it. It's really great.
So that was my first choice. Any other comments before I move on?
A salad choice.
All right, well, I guess we'll move on then. This one's a goodie. Another goodie, of course, because I picked it. The song is called
Lord.
The song is called Sunset Bird of Prey by the English musician Fatboy Slim.
Is bucking in heaven. Fucking in heaven. Fucking in heaven.
Nice.
Wow.
Nice. Well played.
Now we got to check the explicit box.
It was from their third studio album, Halfway Between the Gutter and the Stars, released in 2000. I feel like this was kind of an interesting era of music. And Fatboy Slim, actually, no, you probably lead in a little later with kind of a similar link up as far as genre goes. But I feel like, there's definitely a scene going on here that they kind of sat right in the pocket. This song samples Jim Morrison's vocals from The Doors' Bird of Prey.
Bird of prey, bird of prey, gently pass on by, flying high, flying high, flying high, flying high, flying high.
And while I think Fatboy Slim didn't really nail it out of the park in North America, I think they got a little bit of, kind of play on college rock stations and more alternative focus stations during our era. They were pretty big in the UK, and this single actually peaked at number 9 in the UK, which is pretty amazing. I think that's really all I've got to say about this one, other than I just love putting this one specifically in headphones and just cranking it.
I saw that this song actually had 2 other samples in it besides the Jim Morrison one, and it was Soul Pride by James Brown and Jet Set by Dr. John, which I thought was interesting. I mean, I don't... Obviously, Bird of Prey is the one that is the most predominant through the whole song, but if you listen to the James Brown and Dr. John song, you can kind of start to pick where some of that came into play.
Yeah, it's interesting. And Carla, I think we should close because you brought a good point in our text thread about my selections and the controversial opposing opinions I have between the songs I picked today and other comments I've made in past podcasts. But maybe we'll foreshadow that a little bit, and I'll allow the last song to get selected and spoken about, and then you can wrap it all up in a big bow.
I have one other note about this song, and that there's like that synth run before like the beat drops at 2 minutes in that literally to me sounded like Kraftwerk. And granted, I do have Kraftwerk on the brain because it's all I've listened to for like a month, but I was like,
Everything
this literally
sounds like
like it's
Kraftwerk.
from Kraftwerk.
One of my other favorite little tidbits about Fatboy Slim, his real name's Norman Cook. Well, his real name is Quentin Cook. He is the bassist for the Housemartins.
I'll never be able to shake that. That's just
Wait,
it's so
Fatboy Slim is the
antithetical.
bassist?
For the Housemartins.
Yes.
Wait,
Yes.
what?
Yes.
For the Housemartins.
Yes.
Huh.
That's one of my favorite little tidbits. Yeah.
There's no commonality between those two acts. Like zero.
And I'd love to know kind of what happened at some point that he was a bass player and then probably started DJing, and then like how did he get to the point of being Fatboy Slim? I think it's fantastic.
One of my favorite records of his is On the Floor at the Boutique. It's a live record from his recordings from a set he did at Big Beat Boutique like in the 90s. And I think there's actually like 2 of them. They're awesome. They're hard to find now, though. I have them on CD somewhere. I need to digitize them.
I always think of Bob when I hear Fatboy Slim. Maybe now I got to think a little bit of Mark because Mark picked this song. But you were into Fatboy Slim long before I had heard of them. Of him, I guess it really is.
I definitely, as electronic music, dance music, kind of started growing in the early 90s. That was something that I definitely got into, which is weird because it's definitely an offshoot of things like krautrock. I mean, it definitely has its roots there. But yeah, Fatboy Slim is definitely still in heavy rotation for me.
When you look at the album cover, it's from You've Come a Long Way, Baby. It's just like his record. If I remember right, it's just his record collection. It's just this wall of records. So clearly he had something going on while he was in the Housemartins, because you don't just come up with 6,000 records like that.
Right.
And then become a DJ.
Right.
Is this the one where Christopher Walken's like breakdancing in the video? Or is that something totally different?
No, it's different.
Is it It is Fatboy Slim, though, right?
Yeah.
It's just a different song.
It is. Different song, and then which is also a fantastic song. I mean, and they have so many samples, right? But I think this was kind of indicative of like early 2000s, right? You had Fatboy Slim, Chemical Brothers.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of feel like this was at the peak. And honestly, it reminds me of Newell and I going to the Smart Bar in Cleveland. Remember that place?
I remember that place.
Yeah. It was like the whole let's not drink and eat, let's not drink alcohol, but drink like vitamin enhanced smoothies. And supposedly we're supposed to get, it's just it washed down the ecstasy easier than, a shot. So
that place was awesome because you had to ride that big elevator.
Yeah, you didn't know what the hell was going on. You're like, where the hell are we going?
You got in that massive freight elevator, and you're like, we're all going to die in this elevator, I think.
And then the doors would open and be like,
yeah,
big ass rave.
That place.
Yeah.
I didn't remember that they didn't have alcohol there, but
oh, they had it, but they also had a whole other section that was all about like fresh smoothie juices that were like energy boosted with
a lot of things
ecstasy.
There are unfortunately burned in my brain forever.
So Mark, what's your third choice here?
Last but certainly not least, and we'll stick with the early 2000s theme, and we'll stick with a little bit of the same genre, and maybe go to the godfather of all these groups, Moby.
I don't know. Maybe he's like that weird uncle that you've got over on the side.
I'm gonna go with Weird Uncle.
Before being vegan was cool, Moby was around, and I selected a song from his 2002 album 18, and the name of the song is Another Woman.
You leave your home for days and days, and I know, said I know. You leave your home for days and days, and I know, said I know.
The song, I just love this song because he samples an amazing voice that came out of a woman named Barbara Lynn, and it was her song called I'm a Good Woman, which was released in 1966. And she was a pretty formidable force in kind of the male dominated music world as a woman of color back in those days. And this has quite a bit of a bluesy sound to it. And I think the way Moby kind of just transforms her pretty badass, soulful voice into the song is pretty amazing. I'd kind of forgotten about this song specifically, and this isn't my favorite Moby album, and not necessarily the one I always go to, but it's probably the one that really blew him up because he had a couple pretty pronounced singles on this album. I just started to kind of think about Moby and knew that he had sampled a bunch of stuff throughout his catalog. 18 definitely was probably his most successful album, reaching all the way up to number 4 in the US. And I think that's it. But I think her voice and the way he masterfully samples this into the song was just an amazing, again, and another amazing one to listen to in your headphones. So I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, I liked this song. I kind of forgot about Moby. I mean, I was really into him back in that like early 2000s time, but
Like Play.
kind of fell out of it. But I really like the Barbara Lynn song. I added it to our DJ set list for next weekend. So we'll see if it makes it in. But it's there.
That had to be permitted, right? Because that's a lot of fur that's getting sampled there.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it is kind of one of the things that's interesting about all of our songs today is that some of them use little chunks of songs, and some of them flat out are using like the whole song. So yeah, it is kind of crazy. So one of the things I think that's interesting about the Fatboy Slim and Moby songs that you picked, Mark, those are not two that I would have picked, just because they're a little less known, maybe not popular for those particular artists. But I kind of like that you picked them just for that reason.
And what I thought was cool about the Tribe Called Quest song is they sample like 2 bars of the Lou Reed track, and then they cycle it back through, so you hear it like click and double back, right? It's like watching a GIF kind of recycle. They could have just played that bass line forever and just taken a big cut of it. I don't know if they thought they'd get away with it if they only took 2 bars,
Right.
and then repeated them 700 times through the song, but it was cool.
Well, and you think about how many songs that sample either bass lines or drum beats, it's super easy to take just seconds of a song and then you've created a whole bass line or drum beat for your song. I think the thing that's cool about some of those samples that you hear from songs from the 80s in particular is you can hear how mechanical that sample is. That now you hear samples and it's I'll bet you in a lot of cases they probably just contact the other record label, get the files, and they're able to trim it down to the millisecond and get the exact clean sample that they want. But it's cool to hear those ones from the 80s, like you were saying, that you can hear like those guys were using a recorded tape into whatever multi-track tape system they were using to record, and so you get this very mechanical feel for those samples, which is cool.
Well, I think they were literally splicing tape like back in the
Right,
80s.
right.
So that's why it kind of has that sound.
Yeah, it's
like
this
that.
super like manual analog sample and not like super clean. I mean, you've got all the equipment. Like I was saying, you've got all the equipment right in your phone to sample anything. So
You remember when your mixtape would like snap and then you'd have to take some scotch tape and do your own splicing to like fix that one place, and then you'd be listening to a song and it would go and then the song would start back up again. Yeah, those are good old days. Kids have it so easy these days. Man. We had to like do surgery on our music, for Christ's sakes.
We did.
that was the best.
God, I remember making mixtapes and jacking the VCR into it and taking like clips from movies,
Yeah.
you know, like from Reservoir Dogs and Bugs Bunny,
All
and
right.
like putting them together into a dialogue, and then a song would kick in, and yeah, let's see if I can find some of that.
Yeah,
That was work.
those were the good old days.
It was work.
Yeah.
I will leave with one more thought here before we pass the baton. But Carla, interestingly enough, had made a pretty good observation. It's well documented that I struggle a lot with soul and funk from the 60s and 70s, more so the 70s than the 60s. And Carla kind of
Just the best decade ever for culture, but go ahead.
70s. Okay. We'll agree to disagree here. But funny enough, I picked
No, we won't, because we're going to change your mind.
No, you're not. You're just not. So
Carry on.
carry on, Wayne. Carry on, Garth. 3 songs I picked all use soul and funk samples from the 60s and 70s, and yet I am pretty, as you can see, ornery about not so much the 60s, but definitely the 70s. So, Carla, feel free to elaborate more, but I didn't really know what to say when you wrote this. I was like, oh shit.
It was awesome when she
I
wrote
just
it.
said, for someone who doesn't like the 60s and 70s very much, you sure did manage to pick 3 songs that all had samples from the 60s and 70s.
But I'd like to correct. I never said I didn't like the 60s. It's
Or
really
soul
the
and funk. I
70s.
did
Yeah,
say
soul
soul
and
and
funk so much. Yeah, but 60s I'm down with. 70s not so much. But I hear you. So maybe, Brad, to your point, maybe there is hope for me yet.
Yeah. Carla, your turn is coming when we do the grab bag. I'm coming at you.
Oh, I know
But-
you are. I mean, I was sort of coming
in
at
a
myself,
similar
but
vein.
it's fine. I mean, I know. I'm prepared.
So, Brad, why don't you hit us up with number 1?
So I'm all about the drum beats in this. I had 2 ways to go here, and I got stuck. I actually, when I first wrote my notes a while ago, I was still stuck on 4, but I ended up locking it down. So all's well that ends well. But the issue was that my first track sampled 2 songs, well, at least 2 that I know of, and my second song sampled one of the same songs that the first one did. So when I was picking my third one, I thought I could pick a song that sampled the same song that the first 2, and I got 3 songs sampling the same source. That'd be kind of cool. Or it could kind of daisy chain it, right? And pick a song that samples a different song, but that the second song samples. Are you following all this?
Yeah.
Are we all okay?
I finally figured it out yesterday.
Well, yeah, so Carla sent that message yesterday that said, "Hold on, I see what you did there," and I'll have to admit I didn't go back because I wanted to hear this explanation instead.
So
Were you speaking English just now? Because then, as usual,
yeah,
I'm
just
not, usual I'm not
try to
following.
diagram those
I was
sentences.
going to say you need like a flow chart here to figure this out.
Let's just start with the first 2.
Yeah. So what's your first song?
We'll
then?
take it easy. First selection, Rhymin' and Stealin' by the Beastie Boys,
Yes.
1986.
Yes.
From their first LP, License to Ill, which we all bought because we saw Fight for Your Right to Party on MTV. And Beth Nitre played Brass Monkey, and I think Girls for Me off a cassette that was definitely a copy of something someone actually bought. That's how stuff worked back then. There's a lot of kind of cringy frat boy stuff on this album, a lot of misogyny and trash talk. All the fine ladies are on my jammy. I did it with a wiffle ball bat and all that.
Right. I think that's probably the way a lot of that was probably in that time, right?
Yeah, and that's right. It is an artifact of its time. Looking back on it, it's a little dicey. Well, on the other hand, it is classic.
I feel kind of like they kind of fess up to that a little bit too.
Yes. In fact, probably my favorite track by them is Sure Shot.
Mm-hmm.
And MCA raps on Sure Shot. This disrespected women has got to be through, right? They felt like they had to maybe kind of make up for prior misdeeds, and that's fine. I mean, but even in the moment, right? You listen to these songs, and I think there's a decent amount of irony and self-parody, right? I mean, these three knew who they were. They weren't like bandits in the countryside shooting the sheriff and making off with the women, right? Like, it was silly, but it was fun. Anyway, enough of all that. I bought this album on cassette. I took it to band camp in 1987, and it disappeared from my dorm room. If you're listening, Randy Golombowski, j'accuse. I'm pretty sure. In fact, I'm virtually certain.
Wait, what's his name? Jacques Hughes?
Randy Golombowski.
Randy. Oh, I thought it was Jacques Hughes.
Oh, you're the one who speaks French.
I know.
It didn't sound French. Is that what you're saying? All that time in Paris?
Like what was that supposed to be?
Oh, anyway, fair enough. So if you never heard the Fight for Your Right single, like all of us did, and you just bought this record, Drop the Needle on side A, the first thing you would ever hear from this band is the sampled John Bonham drum beat from When the Levee Breaks.
Which isn't that the most sampled song in history?
According to whosampled.com, the song has been sampled 225 times.
Yeah.
And almost every time it is the drum beat.
Because mutiny on the bounty's what we're all about. Board your ship and turn it on out. So sucker with the parrot on his shoulder. 'Cause I'm bad, get pulled and cold, get colder. Terrorizing suckers on the 7th sea. Man, he dig out, be to get capped in the knee. We got 16 men on a dead man's chest. And I shot those suckers and I'll shoot the rest. So still in this beat, I got that feel.
This is an interesting note that kind of ties things together. According to whosampled.com, the Beastie Boys were the second artist to sample the beat. I would have thought they were the first. I mean, 86, right? Turns out Norman Cook got there before they did.
What?
Oh.
Wait, what?
Yeah.
do we just have a Fatboy Slim episode now?
And I'm kind of thinking he was probably playing Happy Hour on the bass around the time he did it too, which is, anyway.
Well, so what did he sample it in?
I don't remember the song.
Oh.
But it was not a Fatboy Slim track because there was no Fatboy Slim as yet.
So much for your notes.
Yeah. Well, what are you going to do?
Okay, well, so this is a mystery. We won't solve it now, but my gosh, is this a mystery I've got to solve?
Boy, it's like you come up with an interesting fact, and they're like more facts, and if you don't have them, we're going to pile on.
We're gonna have to add a fact check, like on Armchair Expert.
Well, so, are we sure this is the same Norman Cook that is Fatboy Slim?
Oh, fair. Yeah, fair question. There's probably a lot of Norman Cooks out there.
Well, I don't know. I was just pulling your chain a little bit. But
too many cooks in the kitchen.
Right, exactly.
You know what I'm saying?
So he was the first one to sample that.
He was the first one to sample it.
And then the Beastie Boys were the second.
Yeah.
Which out of 200 and plus samples, that's kind of
225 as of when I last looked.
that's kind of crazy, just all on its own.
So I love this track. Not only do they sample Zeppelin, right, but they sample Black Sabbath too.
Mm-hmm.
So that's another tie we got.
Sweet Leaf.
The guitar lick from Sweet Leaf. The guitar and drums go perfectly together. Like they could have come from the same song. But I also think if that song existed, it would be too perfect, right? The world would collapse in on itself.
I think so.
A black hole would open, and you're right. Uh-huh.
One quick story before I go on to my second pick. I don't know if it was like probably 7 or 8 years ago. We took the kids to a stage performance of the Arabian Nights. Someone had made a play out of it. The kids were in preschool at the time. We went with another family down in Central Square in Cambridge. And on the way out of the theater, one of the kids, probably Jack, said their favorite part was the bit about Alibaba and the 40 Thieves. And that's exactly what happened. Like me and the other dad walking up Mass Ave chanting Alibaba and the 40 Thieves at the top of our lungs over and over and over. And our wives and kids are like, what are they doing? What is this? Where did this come from? Just love it. Just love it. In fact, I like this album. I like this album better than any of the others I've heard by them. And maybe that's just because it was the first. You know,
Hard to beat
the
Check
first
Your
one I
Head
heard.
and Ill Communication. Ooh, those 90s ones were so good.
They are good.
Paul's Boutique. You can't
And
leave
Paul's
that one out
Boutique,
either.
but
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like this record probably better than Paul's Boutique, but man, I love those 90s ones. Oof.
I just think they're all good. Like this is just a great. I mean, these guys were just incredible, and I think they just had so much crossover. Like they could go super, hip hop, but then they had rock, and then they got into like like you said, Carla, in the '90s. I think you almost considered them more like college rock or alternative rock more than hip hop. So it's just amazing, the breadth. And I think we can't forget, Rick Rubin produced, I think all their albums, but I know, or at least he did produce License to Ill, and he'd previously explored the crossover between rock and hip hop with Run DMC, right, with Walk This Way. So he definitely probably had a lot of influence on getting that When the Levee Breaks and Sabbath in here. But Brad, I'm surprised, the Clash's version of I Fought the Law is also sampled in this song, and
Fair point.
I thought
You're right.
I thought that'd be the first
And
thing.
I cold one.
Yeah. I thought you were going to be all like obscure and inventive and say this is the actual sample in this song.
Right.
Anyway,
There's a friggin' and the riggin' reference there, and that was like a
friggin'
obscure
in the
Pistols
riggin',
song.
friggin' in the riggin', friggin' in the riggin'.
Have you guys listened to the Echo Chamber yet? It's it's Mike D's Apple radio show. It's so great. He interviews a lot of people, and sometimes he just talks about like songs. He'll just like kind of like this, pick a theme and like talk about songs that he's liking that like fit that theme. But there is a 30th anniversary of Check Your Head episode, and that was a really great one because they talk about the sampling. They play some of the original songs like in the pieces that they sampled, so they kind of like put them side by side. And it's annoying on Apple Radio because you can't, like, there's no show notes like a true podcast. So I was trying to like write down songs that he was playing so I remembered what they were. But it's a good show.
Moving on, song number 2 also samples the John Bonham drum beat in a song that could not be more diametrically opposed to the Beastie Boys and what it's trying to do. This was 1991. The song is Pearl, the first and only single on Chapter House's first record, Whirlpool. I bought this album on CD my freshman year in college. Shout out to Princeton Record Exchange. I saw the video for Falling Down on 120 Minutes, so they had a video for Falling Down, even if they didn't release it as a single, I guess. At the time, I was really big into Manchester. The song sounded just kind of wah-wah, trippy enough for me to run out and buy the LP. The record isn't Manchester really at all. It's shoegazer, dream pop type stuff. And the dream pop element is, I think, most apparent in Pearl. It's just an extraordinarily beautiful song. Like, seriously. I don't do this anymore, but there was a time in my life where I would like keep track of what my all-time favorite song was, right? People say, what's your favorite song? Like, you could pick one. And it would change from time to time, but I always had a favorite. And from the fall of 1991 through to probably the fall of 1994 when I first heard Live Forever, if you'd asked me what my all-time favorite song was, I'd have said Pearl by Chapter House. Like 100%. Wouldn't even have to like think about it. And to this day, it still holds up, right? The guitars, the whispered vocals, it's as good as it gets. If I had a crush on you, but I didn't have the nerve to say so, and I made you a mixtape instead, this song was on it. If I didn't have a crush on you and I made you a mixtape, I probably put it on anyway. So draw no conclusions one way or the other.
I was going to say, I'm pretty sure you put this on a mixtape for me. So
Yeah. It's funny because when I play it, I was listening to it last night. I had it in sequence after the Beastie Boys. And because that beat is sped up just a little bit faster, like having heard Rhyming and Stealing and then hearing Pearl, I'm like, this song feels kind of rushed to me.
Yeah.
And I had to stop and think, oh no, it's just because like it's higher BPM rate than Rhymin' and Stealin'. So like, put aside the Beastie Boys and play it by itself. Otherwise, you're gonna feel like they're rushing to the end of it. Anyway, there's a second sample in this. It's another beat overlaid on top of the bottom beat. It's from a track called PSK, What Does It Mean by Schoolie D. And this is what put me at the crossroads, right? Because I had another song in mind that sampled the bottom beat. That song was Only Love Can Break Your Heart by Saint Etienne. I thought this would be an interesting choice because I could say I had 3 different bottom beats and that each one was getting played faster than the next, right? You hear that Saint Etienne track, they drop it into a drum beat. It's like twice as fast, right? Twice the BPMs. And I could talk about Saint Etienne, who I love, and I could talk about how, to the surprise of millions, they took a Neil Young song and made something good out of it. But I decided instead to take a song that ran with the Schoolie D beat, just like Chapter House did. This track came out within 2 months of Pearl, so I was playing these songs around the same time. That third song, Kiss Them For Me by Susie and the Banshees, I had on CD single. It's one of the few songs that I bought on CD single. The B-sides on that, by the way, it's awesome. I remember at the time hearing that beat in the Susie song, hearing it in the Chapter House song, playing them side by side, and I was thinking, one of them must have sampled the other one. Right?
Right.
Or did they sample the same source? So I never like ran this down, right? There was no internet at the time
Right.
to kind of
It
sort
would have
through
been
this and figure it out.
super hard to do that. Yeah.
So I don't know, 20 years later, 30 years later, we do a sample episode, and it occurs to me to look this up. And that's how I figured out, okay, this was PSK. What does it mean by Schoolie D? So this is the one I'm running with. I struggled because I was like, oh, there's a lot of Susie stuff I want to do. And my notes say, Carla, they say Cities and Dust and The Staircase. There was also a bunch of Saint Etienne songs I wanted to do at some point. But in the end, the play here is to go with Susie. This way that the drummer and me can show love for 2 different beats. John Bonham's and Schoolie D's. Both of which converge on the best song of the 1990s, which was Pearl. Fight me.
Bold statement. Bold statement. But
I mean, it's a good song.
it is a fantastic song.
I mean, look, there are 36 songs from the 70s that are probably better, but it's the best song of the 90s.
Well, I'm paraphrasing, but I believe in this article I'd read, kind of getting prepared for this, and I wrote this down about the song, that they considered Pearl the most radio-friendly shoegaze song of all time, and somewhat of a gateway drug to the world of fuzz. It makes sense that it's that easy. Here's an interesting thing to throw in here. I'm so excited. This was a really freaking brilliant pick, Brad, like really brilliant. Because to like work in Schoolie D into one of our podcasts that's not on hip hop, and even if we did a hip hop themed podcast, Schoolie D probably wouldn't have made it in. So how brilliant is it that not only did you work it in, but you worked it into like 2 songs that were sampled?
That's sheer accident. I know zero about Schoolie D.
I forgot about Schoolie D.
Right? I know, like totally. Like I'm like in shock over here, which like when we're done podcasting today, I'll probably go put some Schoolie D on just to like go back down that path. Here's a little fact that maybe not everyone knows on this podcast or our listeners, but the producer for both Susie and Chapter House for these songs was Stephen Hague. So he actually produced both of these albums. That's and cool. There was an accusation at one point that Chapter House stole the riff from Susie's song Kiss Them For Me, when in actuality it turns out that the drum beat was one of the prefab settings on the popular Roland synthesizer. That's
That's awesome.
kind of twists it on its head. But I'm glad that you. I thought you were going to go with like, oh, this is, sampled off a Susie's song or vice versa. But you went deep and found Schoolie D and gave him his props. So
So Roland took and licensed the Schoolie D beat into
apparently they
its
made a
synthesizer.
prefab. Yeah, apparently they put a prefab setting.
That's awesome. And it was probably then the same instrument in the same studio with Stephen Hague.
Yeah,
It's all coming together for me. This is a mystery solved. A 30-year-old mystery solved for me. I love it.
So those are three solid choices, Brad. I was intrigued when Carla said that yesterday. I was like, okay, without going back and studying the songs to figure out the samples, then
Guys, I
but
just
now
used whosampled.com. That's how I found it.
that's no
I
fun.
mean,
that's where Noel's notes are.
Right. You crazy kids in your research.
Like research on demand for Noel. Yeah. Wait, what song are we talking about next?
So my three songs are we mentioned earlier about rule breakers, and I kind of feel like the songs that we've gone through so far are all true samples, and so now we're going to start get into the rule breaking territory here. My first song is "Simple Things Part 2" by Dirty Vegas, and the sample, if you want to call it that, is "Another Brick in the Wall" Part 2 by Pink Floyd.
No dark sarcasm in the classroom. Teach you leave them kids alone. Hey, teacher, leave them kids alone.
The thing that's cool is that I feel like they re-recorded that song for the Dirty Vegas song, and then when they get to the end, they actually just start singing the Pink Floyd song uh, to really kind of unleash the sample to its fullest. So Dirty Vegas is kind of I don't know what you want to call them, dance, EDM, whatever, electronic,
they were electronic.
yeah,
Yeah.
kind of bands. Yeah,
2000s back on the, I didn't want to give like, ruin the surprise of your selection, so I didn't mention it during my little section, but another one of those bands that kind of fell in there with Chemical Brothers, Fatboy. Here you go, Dirty Vegas.
yeah. And so they had a couple kind of not huge hits, but a couple pretty popular songs. And I think one of the things that probably happened with quite a few bands there in the early 2000s that were kind of in the same genre is that they ended up licensing several of their songs to be used in TV shows and commercials and movies and things like that. Moby pretty famously did that with one of his whole albums. He just licensed the whole thing for people to use in TV shows and movies. So that was, I think, one of the ways Dirty Vegas kind of got some notoriety was that they had a song used in a Mitsubishi Eclipse commercial, and that song really blew up. So it was already a big single for them, but that really it kind of put them on the charts a little bit. But this song, "Simple Things Part 2," is a great song off that album. So that's my first song.
I feel like you put a Dirty Vegas song on a mixtape for us years ago.
I
CD of the
probably
month
did.
type thing.
It was probably
And I remember
Days Go
liking it.
By. I mean, that was their biggest hit was Days Go By. Um,
I think that
and
sounds right.
it's probably
Yeah.
my favorite song of theirs. Although this whole album, Dirty Vegas, self-titled, is I think a pretty good album front to back. It's nothing groundbreaking necessarily, I suppose, but it's pretty solid.
I mean, that's an acoustic guitar they're like
Yeah,
overlaying on top of it, right? Right. If they're if they're
So
like
they
an
have quite a
EDM
few
or
songs
techno
that
band, house
kind of
band.
go back and forth. And one of the things that's happened with them too is I'm not sure which one of the members. They're a duo. I think it's probably Steve Smith. Um, he has re-recorded a handful of their songs. So they broke up as a band quite a while ago. But recently, he's re-recorded a couple of their songs as acoustic versions and put them up on YouTube, which is kind of interesting that they were able to take songs that were really electronic and digitally produced and then turn those around into all acoustic versions, which is kind of interesting.
I heard the vocals on this and I was like, is that Richard Ashcroft? Like, it sounds a lot like Richard Ashcroft.
Yeah, so the thing that's kind of interesting about them as a band is that they've got kind of this, I guess you could describe it as kind of a chameleon quality, that they can kind of end up sounding like a bunch of other things. I don't think that's necessarily in a bad way. It's just kind of interesting for them as a band.
Interesting thing about Steve Smith, who's in Dirty Vegas, he was actually a percussionist in the new wave band Squeeze, and currently plays in the rock band Portugal the Man, and has been playing in that band since 2008.
No way. That's kind of crazy.
Yeah, so a few little tidbits, and he's a Grammy award-winning musician. So things that you don't know about Dirty Vegas, because really you just think about that Mitsubishi commercial, but they also opened for Moby back in the 2000s. So
That's not the same Steve Smith that played the drums for Journey.
nor the same
This guy's everywhere.
nor the same Smith that played wide receiver for the Carolina Panthers, but you know.
But that would be incredible.
The guy's everywhere.
He's everywhere.
Thought Norman Cook was everywhere.
Right?
Yeah, apparently both these guys are.
My second song is Beck, Deborah, which samples or recreates David Bowie's song Win. I don't know what to say about the song. You have to listen to this song. I absolutely love this song.
It's one of my favorite Beck songs. I love it so much.
I mean, it's so... The thing that's great is when you listen to the Bowie song and then you listen to the Beck song, you know it had to be a trip listening to him record this, because he's just trying to be David Bowie. And it's funny. I think it's funny.
I thought he was trying to be Lil Sweet from Dr. Pepper. That's what I thought he was trying to.
So the song is funny. I absolutely love it. The first time I heard it, when he gets to the twist in the song about Deborah, I mean, it's brilliant. It's totally brilliant.
You know at the end of High Fidelity when Jack Black sings like "Let's Get It On," it's like so over the top. Like,
Yeah,
it always reminds me of this song.
yeah. It's such a funny song. You have to go listen to this song, because I think it's funny, but I think it's brilliant too at the same time. So
Get with you, and you know what we're gonna do. I wanna get with you. Oh, girl, and your sister. I think her name's Deborah. I wanna get with you. Only you, girl, and your sister. I think her name's Deborah.
You know what else is brilliant is that Carla just referenced High Fidelity, which is really a movie that constantly picks themes to talk about and picks the songs, right? So
I
well played.
talk about High Fidelity in literally every podcast. I think I talked about it on our last Crowd Rock.
I freaking love that movie, and I love that like we're doing a podcast based on music themes, and that maybe that's where we were inspired. But it was like all about mixtapes, and
It's also a
we
terrific
are
book.
High Fidelity. We are High Fidelity.
it is a good book.
I love the book. I mean, the book.
Yeah.
Oh, I've never read the book.
Yeah.
I should read the book.
It's so
It is
good.
really good.
Is it available on audio book? Because I don't read.
It might be by now. I don't know.
He hand writes, but he doesn't read.
Yeah, it's true.
So that's my second pick. Again, not a straight sample of David Bowie, but kind of this reimagining of a Bowie song. My third song is Arabella by the Arctic Monkeys, which samples or recreates War Pigs by Black Sabbath.
So good.
And the thing that's great about this song is that when that part of the song comes in, like the first time I heard it, I was like, wait a minute, where have I heard that before? Like it's such a short little snippet in there, but then you're like, oh yeah, okay, cool. And then, as the song goes on, they start to use a little more of it. And then there's kind of a little guitar solo bridge part where they use even more of War Pigs. And again, I don't think it's a sample. I think it's really them recreating that. And I just love that song too. It's a great song.
The horizon tries, but it's just not as kind on the eye. Just not attaching to your mind and soul. You can be
So this is the Arctic Monkeys before they gave up or decided to suck, or whatever they did with that last
1000%
album.
it is.
Oh God, don't get me started.
This record is phenomenal.
That whole
Yeah.
that whole album, AM, is a great album, definitely.
Oh, and the live show around that record was just
Yeah.
nuts. It was so good.
Well, so one of the things I like about these three songs is since they aren't straight samples, I guess to a certain extent, I feel like they're more homages to those original songs. That these are things that influenced those bands and things that they had listened to. And I feel like, there are probably a lot of artists that get things in their head and they're like, at some point, I have to like pay tribute to those things that kind of laid the groundwork for me to become a musician. And I think this is a cool way to do that. I think there are probably a lot of artists that do that with samples, that it's like, this is a totally kick-ass thing. And I have to figure out how to, pay some tribute to that thing that's influenced me as an artist. And so I thought these were three songs that use samples in super cool ways. And then kind of paid tribute back to those original versions of the songs.
I feel like it's like Matthew Sweet doing that Jefferson Airplane thing in Girlfriend at the beginning of the song, right? Yeah, it's always cool to hear that. Let me ask you this, Bob, because when you did the covers episode and you did changes, and you said, I'm not really into Black Sabbath, and now you've picked this song. Like you're definitely orbiting around the planet. Like, I think you should come down to the surface with us or with me and listen to some Black Sabbath.
Well, and so
it's so good.
I feel attacked, like Mark.
No, I'm inviting you. Like
So I don't.
You should listen to Sabbath.
I don't think I've ever said that I don't like Black Sabbath. It's just not something that I would have in a playlist of mine.
That's fair.
But
That's fair.
But we've shown this podcast can
It can
open
broaden
the
your
path
horizons.
to broadened horizons. Exactly. If I'm picking songs with 60s and 70s funk and soul, you can
We
surely
really turned a corner.
explore. Yeah, right?
We're
Yeah.
growing. We're growing. I guess I hadn't even put together that connection there, Brad. So thank you for pointing that out and enlightening me.
Days go by, I tell you. Days go by.
Are you trying to do that, Mark, or is it just
No,
your
I'm
perfect
just-
comedic timing?
Just that good.
Yeah. Okay. So those are my three, and I guess that leaves us with Carla, the originator of this train wreck. I mean, this podcast about samples.
So I fessed up to Brad about this, but did you guys notice that I switched a song out?
Wait, this morning?
So many months had passed from when I locked in my songs.
So you locked and unlocked. You
I
actually
locked
did
and
lock and
unlocked.
unlock.
I don't know anyone else on here that does that, but
I've never, nobody does that. So how dare you?
I think maybe I kind of
I
noticed
don't
that.
think Mark's ever locked and unlocked. He just doesn't let
I,
him lock.
I still might change my pick, and we're not because
Wait. I want to go back now. I think maybe I had noticed that maybe these were different. And also, when we record our grab bag episode here in a little bit, you did the same thing.
I did. But I did say semi-lock
Semi-locked.
on that X song, so
Whatever,
we will circle
Mark.
back around to that. But
Whatever, Mark.
welcome to the club, Carla. Welcome to the club. It's liberating, isn't it?
Do you are you sure these are the 3 songs you want to
Yeah,
use, Carla?
I'm positive. Mhm.
Okay.
I'm sure. So the one I switched out was Real Real by Sleigh Bells, which samples Can I Get to That by Funkadelic. So maybe one day I'll throw that into a grab bag.
Thanks for
but-
switching it out, actually.
Oh, I love me some Funkadelic, though.
The podcast is way less controversial now that Sleigh Bells is off of it.
I still have my B- to award. Just
Oh, great.
clear.
I like the way you did that, Carla, though, because this is Mark's favorite trick too. Is that so I've picked 3 songs, but I'm going to name drop like 7 or 8 songs in this
Exactly.
episode, so I can still get all of my picks in. I'm not going to talk about all of them necessarily, but I am going to show that I picked like 36 songs for this episode.
Yeah.
See, she's smart. That's why we've been friends for so long. We learn from each other. That's why we've been birds of a feather for 30 some years now.
Growing. We're all
That's right.
growing.
So what I decided to swap it out for, honestly, it was a selfish way to plug Carla and Brad talk about krautrock.
Uh-huh.
It's only the 6th time on this podcast.
Afrika Bambaataa and the Soul Sonic Force. I picked their song Planet Rock, which Afrika Bambaataa was considered a hip-hop pioneer, and I felt like if we were ultimately going to do a samples episode, that it would only be appropriate to pick somebody who was really one of the first to be using sampling in their song.
Wow. L-O-V-E. The Soul Sonic
Technically, and I'm going to throw another song in there. Technically, the first hip-hop song with the sample is credited to Sugar Hill Gang's Rapper's Delight, but we're not talking about that one today. So
That's a good 15 minutes, too, isn't it?
yeah,
So-
it's a long one. It's a long one.
Yeah.
So Planet Rock was released by Tommy Boy Records in 1982. It samples Kraftwerk's Trans Europe Express and also Numbers.
Here we go. Here we go.
I'm not going to talk a lot about Kraftwerk because we have an entire episode
That's in
about
a
it
separate
over
podcast. Yes. Uh-huh.
Carla and Brad talk about Krautrock wherever you find your podcasts.
My gosh.
Lines are
Shameless.
blurring. Lines are
Shameless.
blurring. Lines are blurring.
Shameless. So Afrika Bambaataa, along with DJ Kool Herc, are kind of really considered the 2 pioneers of hip hop. They both basically were the originators of breakbeat DJing, which is kind of what we've been talking about, where you have like one beat and it kind of just like, they would just splice that one beat and then keep kind of looping it. Afrika Bambaataa was a DJ in the mid 70s, and he worked a lot of block parties kind of in the South Bronx area, and DJ Kool was doing like the same thing, but Bambaataa would really scour New York City record stores, and he was listening to Kraftwerk and Gary Newman and this band Yellow Magic Orchestra, which was a Japanese electronic band that was kind of came out of that 70s 80s time. He got hooked up with the producer Arthur Baker, and the 2 of them bonded over Kraftwerk. They both really loved the beat to Trans Europe Express, but they thought it was like a little bit too slow, so they wanted to figure out a way to speed it up. Same with the beat. They felt like the beat and Numbers like worked better. So ultimately, They decided that an 808 drum machine would be the way to do that, but nobody had one. So the story goes that they saw an ad in the Village Voice that said "man with drum machine, $20 a session." So they just called this guy up. And
Not a drummer, but a man with a drum machine.
But a man with a drum machine, $20 bucks.
Awesome. That should be the name of a band.
His name was John Roby, and he ended up, he had all the equipment, and they ended up programming the song. So similar to Bob's songs where the beats weren't actually sampled, they Bambaataa and Arthur Baker knew how to recreate those drum beats within the drum machines, and they didn't want to use a live drummer because they wanted to have that electronic sound like Kraftwerk. So this John Roby reprogrammed all of that. So I think ultimately maybe that's why they felt like they didn't need to ask Kraftwerk for permission to use those songs, but the song was a massive hit, and Kraftwerk ended up coming to Tommy Boy and asking for royalties after the song had sold at least 500,000 copies, probably more ultimately. So what they decided on was $1 from each sale of the record would go to Kraftwerk. What Tom Silverman did, who was the founder of Tommy Boy Records, is he just increased the price of the single $1. So legend has it that he recouped all of his money. He was really never out any money because he just kept increasing the price of the single, and people were still buying it. And that's how he paid them back. But
so did they re-perform the synth part of Trans-Europe Express, or did they just speed it up? They did that too.
In Trans-Europe Express, they sped it up. They sped it up a half tone.
Yeah. You can definitely hear the difference in speeds.
Those two Kraftwerk songs in particular are sampled quite a bit. Trans-Europe Express has been sampled in 85 songs, and Numbers has been sampled in 165 songs. So definitely two of Kraftwerk's more sampled pieces.
I love that the whitest people in history contributed to the founding of hip hop, right? And are recognized for it. And it's sort of the flip of what Elvis did with rock and roll, right? It was fair's fair.
Yeah.
Am I the only one that just thinks of Chris Farley when I hear Tommy Boy Records?
Tommy Boy Records is the whole reason why I cannot get any De La Soul records streaming right now.
I know, which is brutal.
Which is a real bummer.
It's me, myself, and I over here.
My second song is Portishead's Sour Times, and I never realized this song was sampled.
Me neither. I fell off my chair. I was like, what?
Yeah, I had no idea. So it uses pieces from a song called Danube Incident, which is by an Argentinian composer, Lalo Schifrin. And then the drums on whose... I don't hear this in the song, but when I looked it up on who sampled, it also credits the drum portion to a Smokey Brooks Spin It Jig. And I listened to that on YouTube, and I couldn't place it, but that's what it says. We all know and love Portishead. This is the second track off their debut record, Dummy.
To pretend no one can find the fallacies and morning rose, forbidden fruit, hidden eyes, courtesies that I despise in me. Take a ride, take a shot now, 'cause nobody loves me. It's true.
Sure, we can call that a mixtape. Diaries essential. I think it's probably in all of our collections.
Totally.
Raise your hand if you have it. We all have it, right?
Yeah.
This album won the Mercury Prize in 1995. It beat out Definitely Maybe.
Wait, let's pause on that.
Whoa.
Whoa. How do we feel about that?
Yeah, don't just go fucking breezing over that stuff.
I know, I'm sorry.
I will allow it, but I'm not sure I agree.
No fucking way.
It's in the same. I feel like it's in the same ballpark.
Here's my argument. Here's my argument for it, though.
No.
Definitely maybe is how I feel about it. Yeah.
Look.
Nice. Well played.
I mean, also a mixtape diaries essential. Definitely maybe. But I do think, in researching this, I didn't realize how pioneering this particular album was. It was
Yeah.
really one of the first times that electronic music and Portishead in general is kind of considered, to have kind of started that trip hop genre. And this was really one of the first times that electronic music and like hip hop and sampling all kind of converged into one record in a way. I mean, I think from that standpoint, I could see why. Hopefully, it was a slim margin. But
I just think that's fascinating that it beat out Definitely Maybe. That is kind of interesting.
I think I'm saying definitely maybe, and Mark's saying dummy.
That's exactly what's going
I'll
on
be
in
here all
my
week.
head right now. I'm just gonna slide away right now.
Dummy is currently ranked as number 131 in Rolling Stone's 500 greatest albums of all time. Previously, it was ranked at 419, so that's the only reason why I called that out. It was such a significant jump in about 5
Yeah, good
years
for them.
that
Yeah.
I don't know what happened there, but
Where is Definitely Maybe?
I don't know. I didn't look that up. Again, we need a fact check, apparently.
Yeah, we do. Where's the producer on this show? There's got to be a producer that can look this stuff up for us, right?
Write down your questions before so that we can answer them.
Oh.
Some notes on Lalo Schifrin, and I actually just discovered this because I was, one of my like random Spotify playlists played Danube Incident, and I was like, what is this? It's Sour Times, and then that is kind of how I figured it out. But he was a pretty famous composer. He's a 5-time Grammy winner. He's been nominated for 6 Academy Awards and actually received an honorary Oscar in 2019. He's got 4 Emmy Awards. He's best known for composing the theme from Mission Impossible. He also scored Cool Hand Luke, Bullet, Enter the Dragon, The Four Musketeers, Voyage of the Damned, Amityville Horror, the Rush Hour trilogy, and he worked with Clint Eastwood on the Dirty Harry series.
Wait, the Rush Hour chill is that the one with
Chris
Yeah,
Tucker
it is.
and
oh my god.
and
Jackie Chan.
Jackie Chan. Yeah. That's crazy. What number did you say that Dummy was on the list?
It's 131 now.
That's great.
Then
That's great.
I won't
Good for them.
I won't share this information then. It will cause great strife amongst
The internet's going to break if he says this out loud, I think.
It's number 217. Definitely Maybe is 217. So
Take a breath,
Dummy,
Mark. It's going to be
Dummy
okay.
is above Definitely Maybe.
Guys, it's a great record.
It is. It totally is. It just blows my mind that
Not arguing, but like in the day-to-day life, you never hear somebody really talk about Portishead, and you hear Oasis every fucking day.
well, I don't know about that either necessarily. Not anymore. Unless
I'm flabbergasted.
Let's get
right
back to
now.
Portishead. So when I hear this song, and I'm not sure if it actually is there, but I can hear like the dust on the record that they're playing in the sample.
yeah.
And I'm thinking, is that actually real, or am I just projecting that because I have this sense of like what they're doing? I think I can kind of hear, like, it's so cool. It sounds like they just put a needle down and recorded.
Yeah, and it's probably, I mean, it really harkens back to those early days of sampling where DJs were playing those samples off of records as a DJ. So I think that's pretty intentional that's why you're hearing that, is because it probably is played from a record.
I didn't see Portishead at Glass. I could tell a 45-minute story about what happened to me at Glastonbury when I went in '98. But the simple fact was, like, it was so dark I couldn't find my way to the Portishead stage on Friday night.
That's tragic.
Yeah, I saw Primal Scream instead. So it was good. But
It's not 138 of the best 500 albums of all time. Good. Mark is still shaking his head, by the way, listeners.
Mark is just in shock over there, down in my bottom left corner.
He's just staring off into space.
He is.
Not even comprehending how this
I didn't
could
know
have
that would
happened.
rattle you so greatly.
Well,
You wrecked his day now. I hope you're happy,
Sorry.
Carla.
Sorry. I'm glad I went last, I guess.
to quote another Portishead song, "Oh, these sour times."
Well, that's the song we're talking about.
he's long gone.
He's out.
He doesn't even know what's happening.
I'm like literally, like seriously, I'm like spun out right now.
Okay, well, let's move on to my third song, and then we'll let you out of your misery.
And it's rough because I love Portishead, but Jesus, those claims or facts, I guess they're not even claims, they're backed up.
All right, so your third song, Carla.
All right, so my third song is Season 2, Episode 3 by Glass Animals, and it's from their 2016 release, How to Be a Human Being. It samples a more recent song. It's this guy, McFabulous, and he recorded the song called I Live Above the Hobby Shop in 2010.
Which is all great. McFabulous and I Live Above the Hobby Shop. I love all of that.
I love Glass Animals. I'm kind of obsessed with this band. I've been trying to figure out what song and kind of how to work them in here, and the sample episode really worked for them because basically everything they do is based on samples. They're kind of considered a modern trip hop band. Their live shows are great. They rework all their like slower songs, so it's just always like a big dance party. It's super fun. Season 2, Episode 3. I'm getting confused with us being on Season 3, Episode 1, so now I'm confusing myself.
So are you going to tell us what Season 2, Episode 3, what is that in reference to? I didn't look it up because I wanted to hear, because I know you've got your copious notes.
It's it's their second album, and it's the third song on the second album.
That's it?
So that's...
I wanted it to be like an episode of MASH or like WKRP in Cincinnati or like some weird obscure reference.
This record in general is a concept record. They consider it to be like a collection of anecdotes that are inspired by like stories of like people they met while on tour, and then kind of just like created these personas and like stories around these people. I love the beat in this particular song, and the lyrics are just fun. It's just like about a stoner girl who's watching TV all day and eating mayonnaise out of a jar and using cookies as coasters. Like it's silly. Like the lyrics are silly and the beat's good. They made a video game. There's a video game you can download like in the App Store that is this song. It's like this whole like world, and it's a silly game, but it is available.
I'm looking now.
There's like a fried chicken, like the videos for this whole album are really fun, and there's things that connect each one. Like there's a fried chicken place that's referenced in this particular video for this song, and it like pops up again in Life Itself in the pork soda video. So there's different things that pop up in all the videos that also come into play in the video game. So they really kind of created this multimedia experience around this record, which is fun. McFabulous, not a lot of information about old McFabulous, but his name is Ben McFadden. He's a Chicago-based musician who was born in New Jersey. He was like a music teacher at a rock school back in 2016. He ended up doing the theme music to a show on HBO called High Maintenance, which I wasn't familiar with it, but it had 4 seasons. And he just wrote this song, and they somehow Glass Animals heard it, and they did ask permission if they could sample it. So he was
well, that's not very cowboy. Just steal it.
Excuse me, sir. Can we sample your song, please?
I think the other thing to note with Glass Animals, particularly on this record, is they heavily feature vintage synthesizers on it, and I won't go into all like the detail of it, but
or that some of those instruments may have possibly been used in a genre of music that we know.
Correct. This is very correct.
Near and dear to your heart.
Do they use the Synthie A, Carla?
They didn't use a Synthie A, but they used an ARP 2600.
Oh my God!
Here we go.
A Roland Jupiter 6 and a Korg MS-20.
I love it when you start talking dirty like that. That's dope. I love that.
So this was my B-. This was my B-.
Oh my goodness gracious!
I thought the sound was great, and I loved all the bleep blips and the video game sounds
Yeah.
and stuff. I just like felt like there was no melody that was in service of it. Just I don't know.
Wow.
Fair.
I don't like modern music. I don't like modern music.
Well,
So, but a B minus isn't a bad grade, right?
I
A
know.
B minus
It's
is
still passing.
I got through high school that way, so
Yeah, me too. It's fine.
fine.
Look at you now. Yeah.
C plus, B minus. It's actually not bad. Kudos to Carla for actually picking something like within the last 5 years, right? The rest of us, like, we're in like.
I challenged myself and I thought, oh, this is a good way for me to work this in because I really do like that band a whole lot.
They're a band that's neither here nor there for me, so I don't know that I'll grade it. I don't dislike them, but I don't find myself gravitating to listening to any other stuff unless they're in an incredible playlist where I will enjoy it just randomly popping up in a shuffle.
wow, such a kiss ass. My
Yeah, just say
gosh.
B minus.
My
Like,
gosh.
how hard is it to say? Suck up.
Brad's ready to move on to this grab bag episode so he can
Wow.
just friggin' pummel me
Wow.
with my pick.
Man.
Well, Carl and I don't fight very much. It's time we fought just a little bit.
Just a little bit.
Because the alliances need to shift a little bit.
Yeah, I guess I feel like that's what I'm enjoying right now. That like I feel like Carla and I connected today on a myriad of things, so I don't want to ruin that kind of mojo.
I see.
So,
That's fair. That's fair.
yeah, feels good.
I know I have run across glass animals from time to time. That sounds weird. I've run across glass animals. But I've never really listened to them, or I'm gonna have to give them more of a listen because I liked this, Carla. I liked it a lot, even though everybody else seems to think it's stunk.
Thanks, Bob.
I didn't say anything of the sort.
Whatever.
I just said they're not.
I mean, I'll take a B minus. It's fine.
Gosh.
Yeah.
I think those were 12 great choices from everybody this episode.
Were they really 12 though? Because unlike what I usually do, Carla slipped in like another 6, so it's
I
more like
know,
18 choices today.
She did.
Just in passing. It's fine.
Right.
Or technically, you might say it's at least 24 choices if we link in all the
Or more. I
samples,
mean, some of these songs, right, have multiple samples. So
right? Like mine
Yeah.
did.
I think they're great choices all the way around. Even if one of them is a B minus.
Well, you guys are great choices, and you're all at least
Oh,
B pluses in my book.
Oh, that's sweet.
Oh my god. We have lost the plot.
Oh, we never had it, Carla. Oh, good Lord.
Who has next pick?
I don't know who has the next.
Is it
pick.
Mark?
Mark has the next pick. Mark, you want to tell us what you have settled on?
Oh yeah, I didn't. Yeah,
Oh,
it's my turn.
you don't have to be ready for a
Yeah,
choice yet.
fine.
I hoped you'd pick because I already locked stuff up.
Oh,
But anyway,
Yeah, Brad has songs locked, so I thought we were good.
He's locked songs to a theme that hasn't been
That doesn't exist yet.
established.
yeah.
so what we haven't done yet is we haven't had Mark change the theme while we're recording. That's what we haven't had yet. Maybe this is what we're looking at.
That's a true story.
That would be awesome if, like, right before we recorded, he's like, "No, I've changed my mind for the theme." That would be good. So this has been a great episode, guys. It's been fun to talk about these songs.
Season 3, off to the races.
Yeah, here we go. I hope you guys are buckled up and ready to go because we'll probably have another episode out in like January or February.
Right. So just really savor this one.
No, that's a lie, folks. We're about to come at you hard and heavy. Get ready. That's also a lie too. It is. It's a lie. But we've got some ideas for some upcoming episodes. I think it'll be good. It's been great chatting with you guys, and I guess we'll talk again soon, right?
Rock on.
Yep.
Bye.
Hi, listeners. It's your diarist, Carla here. I mentioned in the episode jokingly that we needed a fact check, and as I was editing this episode, I realized we did indeed need a fact check. So Here are a couple things that we had questions on or things that maybe needed a little more information or clarification. So, first off, what is the name of the A Tribe Called Quest documentary? I couldn't remember the name of it when we were recording. It's called Beats, Rhymes, and Life, The Travels of a Tribe Called Quest. You can find it streaming on Hulu, and I also found a couple places on YouTube where it's also streaming. So definitely watch that if you're interested in the band. It was a really terrific documentary. Is Fatboy Slim the same Norman Cook who was in the band The Housemartins? I think we may have established this in the episode that it was the same person, but I did find clarification that it is the same Norman Cook. He was in the Housemartins from 1983 to 1988. We then had a question about what Fatboy Slim song had Christopher Walken in the video. That was Weapon of Choice. That song also features Bootsy Collins from Parliament Funkadelic. Go watch that video on YouTube. I hadn't watched it in years, and it's really terrific. Spike Jonze directed it, and it ended up winning a Grammy for Best Music Video in 2002. For our Cleveland listeners, we mentioned a club called Smart Bar. I knew this club had another name, and it was Aqualon. So it was located at 1575 Merwin Avenue, which is on the west bank of the Flats. It also operated as the Lift, the Whiskey, and Smart Bar. It was considered Cleveland's best nightclub from 1987 to 1997. Mark mentioned Smart Bar serving, quote, smart drinks, and it's the description I found said those were infused with non-prescription, it does say that, nutrients and vitamins, as well as a, quote, brain machine, which was dark goggles with flashing lights that stimulate brainwave patterns. That I do not remember. So there was a reunion in 2012 with some of the original DJs who played there, and it looks like it might still be a nightclub called Lotus Lounge, but the Google images that I saw just show it as an empty building. So it really was a whole lot of fun in the mid to late 90s, though. Norman Cook had used a sample of When the Levee Breaks before the Beastie Boys used it in Rhymin' and Stealin'. That song is called The Finest Ingredient, and the sample comes in at 1:39 minutes. You can listen to it on YouTube. That was really the only place where I found it. I also think that the opening of that song sounded like a sped up synthesized version of Sweet Leaf by Black Sabbath, which was also sampled in Rhymin' and Stealin'. But whosampled.com didn't mention that, but give it a listen and let me know what you think. Did Rick Rubin produce all of the Beastie Boys records? No. Rick Rubin only produced Licensed to Ill. Mario Caldato Jr., he's referenced as Mario C in a few songs, produced Paul's Boutique, and then co-produced Check Your Head, Ill Communication, and Hello Nasty with the Beastie Boys. And the Beastie Boys produced their remaining albums on their own. Our last question was, is Stephen Smith from Dirty Vegas the same Stephen Smith who's in Portugal the Man? He is, in fact, the same person. Stephen Smith is a Grammy award-winning British musician, best known as the vocalist for Dirty Vegas, and as the percussionist for the band Squeeze. He has recorded albums and played concerts with Portugal the Man since 2008. So that's it. Quick fact check. Just wanted to clarify a few things. Thanks so much for listening. We really appreciate it and hope you all enjoyed this episode. Let us know on Twitter. Give us 5 stars. Leave us a review. Share with your friends. All the things. We appreciate it. We'll be back soon. Bye.